All right. Hi, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 25th, 2018, and this is my Wednesday weekly live. And today we're talking about why creating that next advancement opportunity is like dating. So, hey, Chris, how are you? Good to see you, my friend. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I posted an article on Monday by Liz Ryan that talked about how job hunting is very, very much like dating. And I've had some conversations recently that I've been making the similar analogy, and I thought this really might be interesting to kind of explore in today's session, really with the intent of simply having us slow down and really take time to get to know what is coming next for us when we talk about that next advancement opportunity. So I'm going to do a little homage today to Tim Russert. I've got my whiteboard. If you remember Tim, he was a brilliant newscaster and journalist and former host of Meet the Press, and used to love it when he would bring out the whiteboard. So I thought today we would go ahead and do this. We have 2 points. We have A and B. We're at A and we want to get to B. So often, and I am guilty myself, of really rushing in that whole process to get from point A to point B. But a lot happens in that arrow. A lot happens in the space between A and B. And I think it's really important that we explore that, because that's what allows us to simply slow down. So from a career perspective, when I work with my clients, we say, okay, well, you're at A, you want to get to B. B, we're going to define as your next advancement opportunity. What does that look like? So in prep for today, I came up with 10 reasons why I really believe that creating that next advancement opportunity is like dating. So here goes. And these are in no particular order, but I just think they're kind of poignant. So first one is, we have to know what we like and know what we don't like. All right. There are certain jobs that we would love to do, and certain ones that we would hate or just not interested in, right? I remember growing up, I had a job where I was putting up party tents, and I absolutely hated it. That job was so important for me because I got to learn what I didn't like doing, okay? So when you think about who we're looking for in terms of a significant other, right, there are certain things that attract us or magnetize us and certain things that don't, right? It's the same way when we're looking at a job, okay, with a company. You may have an aspiration to go work for a particular company, say like Google or Apple. And in order to get there, you may need to really build some experience along the way to help you be more viable for such a position. But you know what you like and you know what you don't. You also have to figure out how much are you willing to travel. Okay, so you need to know what your commute time is going to look like. You have to know how much time you're willing to spend traveling to go spend time with that potential significant other, as opposed to it's just not worth the time or energy or an investment for whatever reason. So Chris, what'd you write here? And sometimes the type we may love the most can wind up being destructive in the long run. Yeah, that's true, right? I mean, I think that's where along the way we kind of get to know what we like or what we don't. And then as we continue to grow and develop and evolve, we kind of know what certain relationships perhaps maybe are more destructive or toxic to us than others, and that's how we care for ourselves professionally and energetically in those moments. So thank you for that. I remember when I was working in New Jersey and I was teaching, I had a 70-minute commute to get to work because that was where my job was, and that was where I could afford my house. And so there were trade-offs there, but I loved the job so much that I was willing to go ahead and deal with the commute until I could have some more resources where I can move a little bit closer. So you have to know really how far you're going to travel in all of that. Sometimes it's great if the person we're involved with is right in the town next door. And sometimes it's better if they're a little bit further away. So sometimes distance makes the heart grow a little bit fonder, so to speak. I talk so much about core values. And to me, I think it is so important that we are really in touch with our core values for who we are, both personally as well as professionally. And so when we're looking for that next advancement opportunity, it is really important that we ensure that our core values align with the job that we are going to go after. And it's the same way when we date, right? We oftentimes connect with people who share similar or identical core values to us. They don't have to always be exactly alike, but we do, resonate or connect when we see about values that are focused on respect or trust or communication or support and service and things like that. Hey, Rachel, good to see you, my friend. Got lots of stuff going on, and I'm really proud of you. So good to see you today. Thanks so much. You have to know what your income bracket is. And I can tell you that I've had conversations with friends who have been involved in dating relationships where there has been a rather large disparity in income. And they have said to me things like, well, it'd be nice if we had a similar income because we could play in the same kind of space in terms of traveling or going out to dinners or things like that. Money isn't everything, but it is important that we acknowledge that money is something. We could love doing a particular field of work that doesn't pay us enough money to pay the bills and meet our responsibilities. And so we always go into looking at a new advancement opportunity, really kind of understanding what the income bracket is, but also what the income potential is. All right. So that allows us to kind of figure out what we can do and what we can have fun with. Now, if you're in a relationship or let's say you're dating someone and they make a whole lot more money than you and they're totally okay with paying for everything and you're okay with that, and there's a lot of respect and trust in all of that, that's fine. That's your relationship, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it is about how we kind of play in that space. So the point being is, let's not be afraid to talk about money. Let's not be afraid to have an honest and forthright conversation on what the value of money is for each of us in a relationship. I've taken jobs where I have taken a lateral move. I have taken jobs where I have taken a cut in my pay because I saw something further down the road. And I've taken jobs where I've been able to bump my salary because of it. But I've never been overtly shy about having that conversation around money. It's just that, it's just money. We put judgment and values on money in terms of what we can do, but the conversations we can have around it are pretty powerful and impactful. It's why when we start creating that next advancement opportunity, that the salary question is always last, right? We don't normally talk about salary up front, but we hold that for the last bit to really kind of see if we're matching up in terms of being appreciated and valued for our worth in the job situation, and what we're willing to take a job for, be it either maybe the same, less, or hopefully maybe a little bit more money in that. All right, hey, Brian Putman, good to see you, my friend. Okay, where have we left off? Look for ways you are interested and they are interested as well. So I love this whole comparison about dating and job searching, because when a company is interested, they will start with the email, and then they will start with the phone call, and then you have an initial conversation with someone. And in my emails this week, if you saw them, right, it's like, you know, swipe right, swipe left, and I you know, I have no idea what that really means. I mean, I know what it is, but I'm not at that stage of my life where I'm doing it. I'm thankful for that. You know, when I was dating, it was all about making connections and talking to people and reading nonverbal cues and figuring out whether they were interested or not, and whether that meant going for a drink or a bite to eat, or, you know, going out on a date kind of a thing. And so when companies become interested in us, they start to engage us. And they're looking for ways to see whether or not we are really interested in them. And we're looking to see whether or not they're interested in us. So how does that conversation go with that first point of contact with a company? Maybe it's a recruiter, or maybe it's the hiring manager. And ultimately, you may get called in for that in-person interview, where you really need to make a very good impression at that point. Because if you don't want to blow it and mess up the interview, you really want to take and put your best foot forward. So find ways in which they're interested. Look for the questions that they're asking. Self-monitor in terms of how much you're talking. I mean, have you ever been out on that date with someone and all they did was talk about themselves? Okay, they just went on and on and on about how great they are and about how wonderful their job is and their life is, and it's all about talking about them. But they never, ever, ever ask you anything about you. I mean, maybe you have friends that do that now anyway. So look for those kind of things, right? If you're asked a question, give them the information, but don't divulge so much that you're laying all of your cards out there on the table. I'm not talking about being dishonest or deceitful. I'm saying just reserve a little bit in the tank so you have more to give later on in terms of that conversation. Yes, Nancy, you do know everything about me. That is so true. Good to see you. Yes. Yeah. Nancy and I were, gosh, we were friends when we were kids. I was a kid. She was a teenager, but, you know, yeah, God, love you, Nancy. That's great. Thank you so much for joining. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Let's talk about first impressions. So if you think about it, whenever we've gone out on that date, or we've gone out with friends, and maybe we're going to meet people, or you're going to a bar, club, restaurant, whatever that is, first impressions mean a lot. And I know that we hear people all the time and they say, well, I don't judge. Everybody judges. And so here's how I define that. Somebody crosses your line of vision, there's a judgment. There is something that you can't help but notice. Richard and I went to the theater last night. We saw a production of The Wiz, and the show was getting ready to start, and this woman comes in, and she's wearing a pair of pants that I was just like, oh, good Lord. Like, it was just like, they were bright, they were bold, they were patterned. They were some funky pair of pants. And I caught myself because I knew I was judging her outfit, okay? But then I took a step back and I was like, you can wear those pants. You know, there's something about you that's like, I'm going to wear this and I'm going to own it. And I was like, good for you. Like, quickly just kind of shifted, but I couldn't help but make the judgment. And so I think that's where we kind of have to catch ourselves with where judgment lies in this whole process of creating that next advancement opportunity. Figure out, if you can, what the company culture is before you go in for the in-person interview. I'm a firm believer it is far better to overdress than to underdress. For me, I would far rather go in wearing a shirt and tie or a suit, even though I know it's business casual, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. All right. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that first impressions aren't always physical. They are based on mannerisms and behaviors and how you give a handshake. Okay. Have you ever given a handshake to someone and you just got like the wet fish, like the limp handshake, and it was all like, oh, yeah, like, ew, right? Handshakes go way, 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 way back as a form of greeting. And it's when we lock the webbing of our hands together and we firmly, but not too firmly, shake the hand of the other person, that it is an acknowledgement that we are happy to meet them and to see them. I remember coming out of church with my mom as a kid, and she introduced me to a friend of hers, and I gave her a handshake that wasn't very firm. And I thought, well, she's an older lady, I'm not gonna, and she ripped into me and she's like, you give me a decent handshake. And I never forgot that, because the handshake is that form of communication, that let me get to know you, let me say I'm happy to meet you kind of a thing. So yeah. The second someone crosses your vision such that you need to affirm that you're not judging, then you're acknowledging that you're subliminally judging them and trying to nix that original thought by saying no judgment. Yes, Chris, absolutely. Absolutely, right. Yeah, good point. And then Rachel, right? Do your homework and find out the dirty laundry on a company. Yeah, I mean, we've all got stuff, right? I mean, companies have things. How oftentimes do we go on Yelp when we're looking for a restaurant, or we look on Glassdoor to see what's there? I'm a firm believer that somewhere in all of that is the truth, but how we kind of get to know and ask those questions can kind of help us see and identify maybe what the opportunity is there. I also believe that when it comes to jobs, very much also when it comes to dating, is that we don't make mistakes. That we are meant to learn from every single experience. Have there been people in my past whom I've dated that today maybe I'm not so fond of and they're not fond of me? Absolutely. Are there companies where I've worked where I'm not so fond of them and they're not so fond of me? Absolutely. But there's also a lot of gratitude in both cases. I'm a far better person because of those experiences today, and that's why I hold a lot of gratitude for all those experiences. So, and that's why I don't believe there are mistakes in those situations, because my intention going into it was such where it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to mess this up, or I'm going to do horrible at this job, or I'm going to be a horrible person in this relationship. It's just about learning from all of that. Yeah, Chris, I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Best handshake advice I ever got was to gauge the pressure of the handshake and then return the pressure, no more, no less. I like that. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna use that, but I'm gonna give you credit. Okay, so thank you. Right, so first impressions mean everything. How you show up, both energetically and professionally. How you show up physically, make sure your attire kind of matches the situation. Act competently and confidently, but not cocky. So let me say that again. Act competently and confidently, but not cocky. So if we have experience that allows us to do a job, and we have that experience to back it up, we can show up very competently and confidently in the work that we're about to do. I'm not a big fan of people who are cocky or aggressively showy in that way. To me, it always kind of questions a little bit where all that's coming from. So be careful of that. But in that, it ties in with the next one, which is know what you're worth. Know what you're willing to settle for, know what you're willing to compromise on, and know what you're not willing to settle for or compromise on. If you're looking at a potential opportunity and they're going to offer you 40, 50% less than what you're currently making, and you simply cannot take that big of a pay cut, know what you're worth. Know what that is. Know what value you bring into the marketplace, and do absolutely everything you can to make sure that you are stating your worth. And if it's not that job, then hopefully it's something else. If you absolutely need to take the job, it is understandable as a temporary solution before you get to whatever that next job is. But if you have time to really date and figure out what that next opportunity looks like, then give yourself some time, slow down the process a little bit, know what you're worth, and know what you're gonna not settle for, or what you will settle for. Having conversations with a friend of mine where they're very, very clear on the work they want to do and how much money they want to make, and they are totally okay waiting until that opportunity presents itself. It's a nice position to be in. I mean, how often have we heard the best time to find a job is when you're already in one? So give yourself that kind of time to slow down. And the last thing is be challenged and look for the growth. And this is where I think dating and job searching just goes really, really well together. When we find that person with whom we choose to date or get involved in a relationship with, there's something about them that we truly treasure. And there is something about them that is challenging to us, or we know there's an opportunity to grow. And when we see that, to me, that's a gift. To me, that's a really, really powerful gift about entering into a relationship with someone where you know that there are opportunities to grow and develop as a person, as a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, all of those things. It is the same thing with a company. When you are ready to create that next advancement opportunity and you're ready to say yes, you're ready to say yes to going to work for them, how are you being challenged? How are you going to able to develop yourself as a professional, and where is the growth for you? And when we create those next advancement opportunities, when we see the potential for growth, that's a huge opportunity to really consider stepping forward and saying yes to that relationship. All right, Rachel, my dad always said there are two types of horses, the show ponies and the work horses. Yes. Rich. The shiz knows the difference between confidence and cockiness. Yes. And tonight when we're bowling, I'm okay seeing both if we win. That's fine. Rich and I bowl league together. We have a good time. So Rich, thanks for joining. So questions, thoughts, comments. Thanks for chiming in on all of this. But like I said, when I saw this article by Liz Ryan this week and posted it to LinkedIn, I kind of thought it was an interesting topic to explore, and just kind of seeing that a little bit. When people approach me and they talk to me about what it's like to work with me in a coaching relationship, and I get really curious about what they're thinking about in terms of that next opportunity. One of the things I'm always curious to know is what their time frame is. If I have a client who is out of work and they need to find a job really quickly, I mean, obviously there can be a little more sense of urgency there, as opposed to working with someone who's already working in a job and simply looking to figure out what's next. And so it gives us time to explore and to play, to really go deep and figure out exactly what it is that they're looking for in terms of that next position. And you know, when I shared this earlier, okay, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this line here between A and B, and that's where a lot of really good stuff happens, because we get to define exactly what that next opportunity can look like, and it connects with why we do what we do, where we want to do it, the organizations we want to work with, and really tying into, and I'm going to loop back to last week's conversation, really tying into that star in the center about that purpose, the purpose of everything it is that we do professionally, but ties in with who we are personally to kind of make that happen. So thank you. All right. Well, we've reached the end of another Wednesday Facebook Live. I want to thank you all for joining. You know, if you have any topics or ideas or questions for future webinars and events like this, drop me an email, let me know. I'll be happy to hear from you and kind of learn a little more about what the interest is and stuff like that. And I really appreciate you hopping on and joining me live and going back to watch the videos and the feedback you're giving me. So thank you so very much. And it looks like maybe the sun is starting to come out. I'm happy about that, because it's been rainy and yucky here the last couple of days, but rain's always good too. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and until next week, wish you a great rest of the week, and keep up the great work, everybody. I appreciate all of you. Take care. Bye.